What's up, Gym Crew? My gems, my gems, my Jimmy Gems. Gym Crew, Gym Army, Gym Nation. Let's go. Hey, another Member Mondays. Let's get it. You guys know the drill. We're gonna be going through some of the scariest TikToks I can find, and you already know how to support the channel. You're already my biggest supporters. Merch shop, free Audible link in the description below. Like and subscribe. Appreciate you, and without further ado, let's jump right in.
Disturbing things caught at gas stations. The video was captured through one of the CCTV cameras in the station. The station operator Amd Abudaria noticed something strange while he was going through the video footage of the station. Abudaria noticed a misty blue shape hovering in the air next to one of the fuel pumps. It stayed there for half an hour. But the mist does not stay in one place, rather, it floats away. Later it comes back into focus, hovering over the windshield of one of the cars at the station. It then again floats away. This left Abudaria scratching his head, wondering what the blue mist could be.
US government was stealing dead body parts to do radioactive testing.
Okay, there is something called Project Sunshine, and after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the United States government commenced a major study to measure the effects of nuclear fallout on the human body. The conspiracy theory was that the United States government was actually stealing dead bodies to do these radioactive testings. And to everybody's surprise, that theory turned out to be true. The government was stealing parts of dead bodies, and since they needed young tissue, they recruited a worldwide network of agents to find recently deceased babies and children, and then take samples and even sometimes their limbs, each collected without notification or permission from the 1,500 grieving families. The world only found out about this horrific experiment half a century later, and to this day, people are still extremely disturbed after hearing about it.
Are you interested in the Black Dahlia case? If so, you need to hear this. This is the mysterious disappearance of Jean Spangler. 26-year-old Jean Spangler was an aspiring actress in the golden age of Hollywood. She had dreams of making it big. She had a 5-year-old daughter with her ex-husband, and after an abusive relationship, the two divorced and were in the middle of a bitter custody battle. On the evening of October 7th, 1949, Spangler left her Park La Brea, Los Angeles apartment. She was going to leave her daughter with her sister-in-law Sophie, while Spangler's mom, Florence, who also lived with them, was away on a trip. She told Sophie that she was going to meet her ex-husband to pick up a late child support payment, and then she would be heading on to work for the evening as an extra on a film set. The next day, when Jean didn't return home, Sophie reported her missing. On Sunday morning, a worker at Griffith Park in Los Angeles discovered a handbag police identified as Spangler's in the Ferndale area of the park. The handle was damaged, and in her purse they found a note written by Spangler. It read, "Kirk, can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away." Jean's ex-husband was questioned, and he had an alibi that evening. And the only Kirk they could find any connection to was actor Kirk Douglas. Jean had recently worked on the film Young Man with a Horn starring Douglas, but he told police he was in Palm Springs at the time of her disappearance. And bizarrely enough, the Screen Extras Guild told investigators that Spangler wasn't even booked to work that evening. The TV studios had no record of her employment that night. A saleswoman at the farmer's market a few blocks from Spangler's home recalled seeing her that evening and noted that she appeared to be waiting for somebody. Only adding to the mystery, one of Jean's friends told police that Spangler admitted she was having an affair with somebody and she was really excited about it. Oh, and one more thing, she was reportedly pregnant. Police never located the Dr. Scott from the note, but there was a doctor in Los Angeles that was known to perform procedures for women who became pregnant. These procedures were illegal at the time, and he performed them under the radar. Who was this doctor, you might ask? George Hodel, the prime suspect in the Black Dahlia case. What? So Jean is missing, and in her purse, police found a note that mentioned a Dr. Scott. A close friend of Jean's said the aspiring actress was reportedly having an affair and pregnant at the time of her disappearance. Police couldn't find the Dr. Scott from the note, but there was a notorious doctor who performed procedures for women under the radar. Dr. George Hodel, the prime suspect in the Black Dahlia case. The night of Jean's disappearance, multiple witnesses reported seeing Spangler at a Sunset Strip restaurant at 2:30 a.m. Jean was seen arguing with a man that matched George Hodel's description, and was later seen at a gas station that night in a car that matched George Hodel's vehicle. The DA eventually looked into Hodel for his connection with various disappearances of these young starlets, and were close to arresting him, but he fled the country and passed in 1999. Jean Spangler has been missing for 72 years and her whereabouts remain unknown. Jean's ex-husband maintained that he had nothing to do with her disappearance. He later took their daughter and moved away. They were never heard from again. Kirk Douglas's involvement in the case was questioned for a while, but there was never any evidence of an affair between them other than that fateful note. So what happened that night? I have so many questions about this case. The note? Was she pregnant, and who was she having an affair with? And why did she lie saying that she had to go to work when there was no evidence that she ever did?
Well, she was having an affair, that's why she lied. She was saying she was going to be at work so that nobody would bother her, and then she could go off and be with Kirk, or whatever. Convenient that Kirk Douglas was in Palm Springs that night. Almost as if he made it be that way. Because I mean, back then they just hired you. It's not like if Kirk Douglas wanted to make somebody disappear, Kirk Douglas didn't just go make them disappear. He hired somebody to make that happen. I've seen the documentaries. I played L.A. Noire.
These are the most disturbing things found in food, part 2.
Up first is a frog found in a bag of frozen veggies. A man was about to make some frozen veggies when he suddenly discovered a dead frozen frog inside of the bag.
Gross.
My question is, how did a frog get inside of this bag, and how did nobody notice this at the company? Next up might be the most disgusting one ever. This person was trying to enjoy some green beans when they dumped it out and discovered a dead baby mouse inside of the can. I wouldn't eat green beans again after experiencing this, and I would most definitely have a mouse phobia. Like, just imagine this happening to you. Next up might be the most mind-blowing one yet. This man was enjoying a Whopper at Burger King when he suddenly took a bite of a condom inside of the burger. This makes zero sense, and it had to be done on purpose by one of the workers, and I think this is why Burger King has such a bad reputation and nobody wants to eat there.
I don't think that's why they have a bad reputation and no one wants to eat there. Probably just their pretty crappy food. I don't like green beans anyway, but now I'll never eat them again. For sure. That's so gross.
Legend or lie, the tainted turkey. In Ohio, an old
He
man
said
lived
taint.
alone with his dog, Jesse. It was going to be their first Thanksgiving alone after the passing of his wife, and despite being invited over by one of the neighbors, the old man decided to just stay home. Later on in the day, there was a knock at the door. The old man wasn't in the best of health, and he used a stair lift to get down the stairs to the front door. However, because of this, by the time he got to the door, whoever had knocked was gone. But now there was a fully cooked turkey sitting on his porch. He picked it up and looked around, but there was nobody there. There was also no note or anything to reveal where it came from. He went back inside, set it on the table, and he called his neighbor who had invited him over and asked if she had left him a turkey. And she politely told him no, and she had no idea where it might have come from. So the old man decided, what the heck, and he was going to eat the turkey. But by the time he grabbed his plate and his silverware and got back to the table, he saw his dog Jesse had already leapt up there and was gobbling down the turkey. At first the old man was livid, but then Jesse got very ill very fast. In a complete panic, he rushed her to the emergency vet, which was the only one open on the holiday, and they were across town. He got there just in the nick of time, and they were able to save Jesse's life.
Yeah, they better.
Then the police came, and what they told the old man stunned him. They told him his dog had been poisoned. The old man quickly told them about the turkey, and the police came to his house and investigated, and they found it had been laced with poison, and it almost certainly would have killed the old man if he had eaten it. Who and why somebody would leave this turkey on his doorstep was never discovered. Was this old man targeted, or was this just a random act by a very sick individual? One thing is for certain though, and that is that Jesse saved the old man's life. So today, give your dog some non-tainted turkey and give them a big hug for me, and have a great Thanksgiving.
It's not Thanksgiving, all the holidays are done, but you can go give your dog a hug for me as well.
We need to talk about this photo. This was the last photo Charlie Noonan ever took. Charlie traveled all across America during the 20th century collecting stories about the paranormal. His wife Ellie told reporters that Charlie once met a farmer in Oklahoma, and this farmer told Charlie a story about a strange old woman who lived alone in an isolated property nearby. But even though she looked like an old woman, she wasn't a woman at all. According to the farmer, people believe that she was something different entirely. Something inhuman, hiding her true form behind a headscarf that was never taken off. and she always had a large dog near her. After hearing the story, Charlie became very intrigued by the old woman and wanted to know what her secret was. So he took off to Oklahoma to try to find answers. Later, Charlie's wife Ellie was notified of Charlie's disappearance, but eventually she got a hold of Charlie's camera. She developed the film inside the camera, hoping to find clues behind his mysterious disappearance. And this was the only photo in the camera. Follow for more stories.
Photo that gives me chills. Back in 1999, a group of independent videographers had ventured into the Metro North abandoned mall in Kansas City. Just before he was attacked, videographer Dane Mondy was exploring the basement locker rooms of this mall when he caught the frame that you're looking at right now. This would have been impossible for anybody to see in person. It was too dark, but when examined later and the brightness is turned up, there is very clearly a woman who was standing in that doorway. So while exploring the mall, Dane eventually splits up from the other two members of his team, but he recalled this feeling even when he thought he was alone, that there was somebody there who was watching him. While he was in the basement of that mall, his team suddenly hears him scream and they came running down after him. Dane had suffered severe lacerations to his face from being attacked, and at the time this was a big story. It made local news because there was an unknown woman that was found in that footage. But despite a police search and video footage, she was never found in that mall, and this is the only photo we have of her.
The crew of the Challenger space shuttle might still be alive.
Okay, so the crew of the Challenger space shuttle might be alive. On January 28, 1986, NASA launched a mission into space that would change the public's opinion on space travel forever. But about 73 seconds into the flight, the space shuttle broke apart and blew up, and all 7 crew members tragically died. Or did they? Apparently there was numerous reports indicating that the shuttle was going to fail. However, the mission still carried on, as if the catastrophe was meant to happen. But people began digging. They found a teacher named Sherry McAuliffe, a CEO named Richard Scobie, and many other people resembling the crew popped up with the same name, age, and looks. And the last 2 crew members, named Ronald McNair and Ellison Anazuka, coincidentally had twins. So do you think this crew lives, or are they dead?
That would be wild if they pulled that off.
Why is everyone talking about this woman? It's this woman, 59-year-old Debbie Collier, who was a mother and office manager who was found charred alive in the northeast of Georgia. But while I'm sitting here and I'm, researching this case, it's even stranger than I thought it was. Something is deeply off with this story. So here's what we know. September 10th, she is reported missing, and the following day, her van is found, but she's not inside. So the daughter comes forward. She says that, her mom doesn't have any history of mental illness. She wouldn't be trying to hurt herself. So what, happened here? Well, later that day, after the van was found, they go deeper into the woods where Debbie is found on a tarp, described as burned alive. This was a tarp she bought herself at the Dollar Tree, shortly before she was found. Stranger than that, her daughter comes forward and says before she was found, her mom Venmo'd her $2,385, along with this cryptic message. Does that not seem like an oddly specific amount, though?
Gone girl, gone wrong. This is the case of Sherry Papini. On November 2nd, 2016, 34-year-old Sherry Papini, a wife and mom of 2 kids, vanished in broad daylight. It seemed to have been an abduction while she was out on a run near her home in Redding, California. Her family, police, and community searched everywhere. Her husband tracked her phone via Find a Phone app and found it on the side of a road with strands of her hair. They feared the worst. Missing signs, searches, California and the states surrounding it were being searched high and low for Sherry. This was major media attention. That was until Thanksgiving Day, November 24th, 3 weeks after she had gone missing. Sherry reappeared on the side of a highway. She's seen here on video footage. She was found with a bag over her head, a broken nose, hair cut off, and was chained at the waist and wrists 140 miles away from her home.
Jeez.
She had also been branded on her right shoulder. Sherry said she was kidnapped by 2 Hispanic women with a handgun and a dark-colored SUV, even going into detail about their appearance for a police sketch. She said she suffered reported beatings while being held captive. When police asked her what the kidnappers' motive was or why they released her, she didn't know. Sherry's husband and family were relieved that she was home, but law enforcement began having doubts about her uncorroborated kidnapping. One day, the sheriff's office received a phone call from a man who told them that Sherry was actually with him the entire 22-day period she was supposedly being held captive. He said, basically, that it was a hoax. This man was supposedly an ex-boyfriend of hers. According to the DOJ, evidence found that Sherry fabricated the entire ordeal, even going as far to harming herself to make her story more believable. On March 3, 2022, Sherry was arrested on charges of making false statements to federal law enforcement officers and mail fraud. To make things even worse, from 2017 to 2021, Sherry received $300,000 from the California Victims' Compensation Board. Sherry is now in custody and is considered a flight risk. What do we think?
Man, she went through all that when you could just get a divorce. You can get a divorce and go do that with whoever you want to. Never understood why people cheat. Like, you could literally not be in a relationship if you don't want to be. It's pretty simple.
This woman was literally, how do I put this, a Nazi killing machine. During World War II, a woman by the name of Rosa Shanina had just begun her work as a Soviet sniper, but little did she know that she would go down in history as one of the most remarkable women in war's time. And it all began because of a bomb attack that killed her brother in December of 1941, and after that day, she swore that she would avenge his death and kill anybody who had anything to do with that bomb. Now, for a long time, the thought of women joining the army was almost non-existent, let alone letting them get a high rank. But after the circumstances became very dire, this all changed, and Rosa, along with 1,000 other female soldiers, were drafted into the army. So in saying all that, throughout her entire career, she had a total of 59 kills, and a majority of those were Nazis. So thank you for your service, Rosa.
Hi, big sis. Are you afraid of me?
Hace como 5 minutos comenzó a asomarse y salgo y no hay nada. Y miren, ahí está otra vez. ¿Qué mierda?
The first ancient civilization that we know of were called the ancient Sumerians. The Sumerians existed over 6,000 years ago, 1,000 years before the Egyptians. They believed in gods called the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were described as children of the earth and sky. Some researchers believe that the ancient Sumerians have an understanding of the universe, with artifacts showing depictions of the solar system, with planets orbiting around the sun. What makes things even stranger is the fact they are depicted with these strange ancient handbags and watches. Their list of inventions are mind-blowing. Not only did they create the wheel, they created the alphabet, the calendar we use today, irrigation systems for farming, time itself, the seconds, minutes and hours. Some say this knowledge was given to them. It does seem that the first civilization was also one of the most advanced ones, which doesn't exactly fit with modern-day explanations of our history.
Stop scrolling, you all need to see this. I think I might have found an actual real depiction of what the Nephilim giants that used to roam the earth looked like. Check this out.
Dang ugly.
When you look at the image of this creature, it has to make you wonder, where would you even get the idea to make something that looks this terrifying, this massive, and this disgusting? Like, this is not something that just comes out of your imagination to create. This is the things that they were seeing in the lands at those times, allegedly. That explains who a lot of these giant weapons were used by, the Nephilim giants. Was there really an ancient race of giants that roamed the earth and ate people? Is this depiction of the Nephilim giant actually just a statue, or is it a real stuffed Nephilim? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Those are two quite extreme answers. I think it's a statue of a Nephilim giant, probably. They probably had giant stories passed down through whatever culture that is. I can't tell. It looks like it's in maybe, I don't know, I see a palm tree. That looks like a temple or something of some sort. So yeah, I'm not sure where that's at, but I'm guessing that they have like giant stories passed down through their culture, and probably a statue. It looks like it's on a rolly thing for a parade or something. So I'm guessing it's a float for a parade, and they probably just believe in giants, my guess. But a stuffed Nephilim? Why would they stuff a Nephilim? Stuff a Nephilim. Snuffleupagus, yeah.
Guys, I was just prepping the house for like getting our laundry together and stuff like that for when we move. something knocked over all that stuff, shut the door, and turned off the... And it sounds like a baby. It's trying to get me to go over there. I'm here completely by myself. Like, it knocked over all that shit over there, turned off the lights, and slammed the door. Legit knocked. I can't even go upstairs. I have to go through this to go upstairs. Like, I can't fit through that or this. It sounds like it's getting closer too.
Nostradamus is crazy. He has made some crazy predictions like 9/11. His prediction says, in the year of the new century and 9 months, which is 2001, right? And 9 months, September.
Yeah.
September 11th. From the sky will come a great king of terror. This is a plane. You got to think he's from the 1600s, right? If he's visioning this in his head, he's not going to know what a plane is.
What is that?
Right.
You know?
The sky will burn at 45 degrees. If you look up right now, the longitude and latitude of New York City, it is 40.5 degrees north. In the city of York, there will be a great collapse. 2 twin brothers torn apart by chaos. I don't believe in psychics for the most part, right? But then I'm like, how do I explain that?
Nostradamus saw in his future 3 men that he called antichrists. One was Napoleon, the second one was Hitler, and the third one is the one that is to come, who is said to be the worst of all because he will learn from the mistakes of the others. A very dangerous person. He didn't like the term Antichrist. He said it was a Christian term and it was not exactly what he meant. But he said if you think of Christ as representing people, humanity, then Antichrist is someone who does terrible things against humanity, against people. And it can be the type of personality like Genghis Khan or Attila the Hun, the type that doesn't care anything about what it's doing, it only wants power. So this is what he meant by an Antichrist. But the third one, he gave us a great deal of information about him because he wanted us to do something to stop the man. He said, in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, and other books in the Old Testament, the people saw the same things that he saw, the prophets did. They only put them in their symbolism they could understand in their time, but they all saw the same thing. And that the man he refers to as the Antichrist is the number 666 in the book of Revelation, called the beast. Of course, he said 666 also refers to his connections with computers. So there's a lot more to it. But he has been predicted.
Oh, what? I'm gonna have to figure out who that lady was and listen to the rest of that, because that was super interesting. Nostradamus has always fascinated me. And he's also made like thousands of predictions that didn't come true. Technically, they haven't come true yet.
After the flood, when Noah steps off of his ark, he looks in the distance to find absolutely nothing. There's no animals because the very last living creatures are on his boat. And definitely no angels because they, along with their once great kingdoms, had finally fallen. But what happens to all these cities and statues built by the angels? I mean, they can't have just disappeared, right? Well, there is this one theory called the Tartarian mud flood. It's a legend of this ancient, lost civilization with access to technology thousands of years ahead of its time. And get this, one day, this empire just disappears. And it seems like they have been buried under this massive, muddy flood. You gotta understand that before the flood, these guys had 1,600 years to conquer the world. There were thriving civilizations everywhere. And with the knowledge of the angels, these guys must have possessed ridiculous technology. So I recently found out about this 2,000-year-old book. It's called the Book of Jubilees. This book actually explains what Noah's life was like after the flood. And this just blows my mind. Because these guys, being the last men on earth, would go up to entire cities to just claim for themselves. They would literally go up to these ruins of these once great palaces to crown themselves king. They would ultimately build a whole new empire out of what was already there. See, after the flood, all the empires built by the angels were just renamed and repurposed. They truly were doomed to become nothing but a shadow of our past.
Interesting stuff, obviously. Yeah, I've talked about it before. I believe there was a great flood. I think that was a real thing that happened. And I'm sure there are lost civilizations and stuff that's still buried in places around the world that we have yet to find. And I do believe that there was probably a handful of thriving civilizations back before that happened. And I think they probably did have technologies that we don't know that they had. But that video did get me thinking. And if we're following the belief, he was telling that obviously from a pretty Christian theological standpoint. And if we're believing that story that one, the world was populated by Adam and Eve, and then God sent a great flood to destroy all the sinners, and then it was repopulated by Noah and his family. It's just like, we know the effects of incest. We have science and stuff now. So, I don't know, just putting two and two together, you know. Did you guys ever think about that? About how, like, if we all come from one couple, we're all related? Obviously, that's not, I don't fully believe that. I think there were a bunch of Noahs. I think there were a bunch of, not like a bunch of guys that heard from a man in the sky to build a boat. I think there were a bunch of people that survived the Great Flood, and they restarted civilization all over the world. And there was just multiple of those. Because if you look back in ancient texts, lots of different cultures have a biblical flood story. You know, we've covered this. But yeah, somebody wrote those stories in different parts of the world. Or like that guy was saying, it was just Noah's kids, and he went to different, you know. They were like, yeah, my dad did this back in the day. We repopulated the world. We're all sleeping with our sisters. It's cool. I mean, it's good. It's kind of weird, right? I don't know. Sorry, I know I'm gonna piss some people off, but some things just don't check out.
There is a dark secret to why we celebrate our birthdays. According to stories, the creation of birthdays is actually a ritual against us. If you noticed, the happy birthday song is like a chant. We make a wish, then blow a candle, portraying a ritualistic experience. It is said that this ritual is sealing our fate to grow older. Some people believe that it is why those who don't celebrate their birthday look younger than they tend to be. Although this is just a theory that is circulating the internet recently, it is scary to think that.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, no more cake and candles for me. Is it the ritualistic blowing out of the candles, or is it eating cake? Just kidding. Having cake once in a while isn't that bad for you. But if you start eating that cake every day, or you finish the rest of that cake over the next week, that's probably not too good for you. There's a lot of things in our culture that are just like mini rituals that that's normal. A Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, that's a pretty strictly American thing, I think, but that's weird. Do they still make kids say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning? If Chinese kids were doing the Pledge of Allegiance, everybody would be like, these damn communists. Look at what they're making these kids do, as if like we don't make kids pledge allegiance. A very Christian-centered Pledge of Allegiance, by the way. I'm not trying to rail against Christianity tonight. It's just, you know, it's what's coming up. But under God, indivisible. I don't know. I guess it doesn't define which God, so I guess it's not really Christian-centric. But let's be honest. They were Christians. Who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance? Let's find out. Oh, Under God wasn't even in the original version? That's wild. It was first written in 1892. Let's see. Oh, so they used to take this seriously. This was like a whole, like, who do you pledge your allegiance to? Britain or the flag of the United States of America? That's crazy. The edition of Under God. Louis Albert Bowman, an attorney from Illinois. It was written in 1885 by Captain George Thatcher Balch, a Union Army officer in the Civil War who later authored a book on how to teach patriotism to children in public schools. Wild. Dude wrote the Pledge of Allegiance and he doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. All states except Nebraska, Hawaii, Vermont, and Wyoming require a regularly scheduled recitation of the pledge in public schools. That's wild. In several states, state flag pledges of allegiance are required to be recited after the pledge to the American flag. That's wild. It's dumb. Stop pledging allegiance to things and causes, because things change. But imagine if they made you do that at like work. Go to your job and you're like, hey, you clock in? Alright, you say the Pledge of Allegiance? Alright, go hit it real quick. Get to work. It's so weird. Yeah, I was definitely one of those kids that didn't like saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I thought it was stupid. I would mouth the words, would hover my hand over my heart. I was so disrespectful. Because I've always thought nationalism is stupid. Like, sure, of course, I love America. I want America to do great. But like on a world stage, I don't really give a shit about competing with other countries. I want every country to do great. I want every human on earth to prosper. I want every country to prosper. I want there to stop being war and famine and hunger. I don't think that's such a wild take. Like, why does my country have to be better than everybody else? I don't really care if we're better than anyone else. As long as everyone's everyone's fed, we still got our problems. So why don't we fix those before we start talking about how great we are? There you have it, oh gems. That is another Member Mondays in the books. We did it, we done it. We're doing it some more. You guys know where to find me. You guys are the true oh gems, the true Jimmy gang, the true Jam crew. Oh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Give it a like, leave a comment, share it with your friends. Send it to your mom, dad, brother, sister, uncle, cousin. Make your dog watch it. I don't really care. But I appreciate it. And until next time, stay creepy.